Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is the lovely Brianna Brunner. She's a couples therapist, psychotherapist, a licensed clinical social worker in the state of New Jersey, and she's also the founder of Couples Therapy Services. Brianna specializes in the treatment of high conflict couples and have created the program, The Survival Sessions, which is the topic of our conversation today. And there's so much more about you, Brianna. The full bio will be at the end. So this is my brief bio, as I always say here. But the question that I love asking all my guests, as I always say too, is if you were to describe yourself in this very moment, how would you introduce yourself in your own words? Who is Brianna?
I am, and I love that question. It's such a nice question to ask people. It really is.
Yeah.
And I would say I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, a friend, a daughter, and a couples therapist. And, I'm also, I believe, like a leader, but a kind leader and a brave leader and a woman. And I think that that's really important. And I just really believe in kindness, and I believe in people have the ability to change. And I really always want to let like that kindness shine through. And I'm absolutely an optimist, and I like to see the best in the world and the best in people.
Wow, what a beautiful
Yeah.
introduction.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, really beautiful. I love the concept of kindness is one that I also follow as a practice. And, I wonder, like love, a lot of people sometimes have different understandings of what these concepts are. And I usually to ask the question, like, what is love to you? I think I never asked the question of what is kindness. How would you describe what that is? Like, what is your definition of kindness?
That's a great question, because I try and teach my daughters. I have two daughters, 4 and 6.
Yeah.
And, I'm always teaching them, like, in a world where you could be anything, be kind, be kind. So that's a really good question of what that is.
Yeah.
Just being generous with your words and your time, and respectful and honest and brave, and treating other people the way you would want to be treated, and really like taking those words seriously and taking that into consideration.
Yeah. How did you uncover that path? Why did you become a therapist, especially couples therapist? I'm very curious about that.
That's a great question. So I've always been an entrepreneur. Like, It's in my blood since I was a teenager, a child. Like, I always wanted to have a business, and that I always thought that would be my path.
Right.
And then I went through like a family, experience that was really difficult for me. And I realized I got through this, and I got through it in an effective way. And I would love to help other people get through it. So then I decided to pursue my master's in social work. And then my graduate internship was at the DBT Center of New Jersey. And I learned this treatment, DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy, which is very mindfulness based, which is very connected to your passion. And I started doing DBT, and I was working with a lot of high risk adolescents. And it was hard for me. I would take it home. I would think about it a lot, worried they were going to hurt themselves. And while I was in that training and in DBT, I found a DBT training for couples, the High Conflict Couple by Alan Frazzetti. And I took his training, and I was like, wow, like, I love this. This is my kind of intense. Like, couples are intense, but it's more like a puzzle. It's not intense in this like high risk way most of the time. So I found it, and I just started doing couples. And years later, I had children, and COVID happened, and I started getting a lot of referrals for couples. And I was like, well, I'm either going to like do something about this and really try and help people on a larger scale, or I'm not. So then I started my group practice then. So, and now I just love couples. Like, it's just a passion of mine. It's so exciting. I love to see them improve and make progress. And we see that often. And like I always say too, like I'm in it for the kids, because we see a lot of couples after they have children. And if
Yeah.
we can help these parents, we can really help the kids, and, trying to change the world on a small scale, but it feels powerful. So yeah, that's how I got into couples. And then I started getting trained in other evidence-based treatments for couples as well, like the Gottman method and Imago relationship therapy. And because when we use those methods, we see couples improve when we use the evidence and the research. So I'm a huge believer in that.
Right. What comes to mind when I think about, I have been married 3 times. Yeah, this is my third marriage. So when it comes to relationships, I think about, the question that comes to mind is, what makes a couple succeed long term in a sense of happiness, peace, and harmony? What is, if you could say, let's say 3 things, if you could outline them, what would they be?
Well, so the Gottman Institute has done a tremendous amount of research on this, and like
Yeah.
what the antidotes are for relationships, and how to see them succeed. So I know the research. In my opinion, like what I've seen too is, one, be less judgmental. Judgments are problematic. They get in the way. We have them all the time. We don't recognize them. We don't pay attention to them.
Yeah.
They connect to emotions. And so if we could be less judgmental, also treating your partner with kindness, even over time, which is difficult to do, because the longer you're married, the more you're used to each other. You just forget that this is someone you really loved and had this passion with. So that too. And I also think that it's really important that we just really take responsibility for our own behavior in the relationship. And what does that look like? Instead of blaming. Yeah.
Right. It sounds to me like, listening to you, yeah, I have read and I have interviewed a lot of people too about this topic. It
Sure.
really sounds like maturity, isn't it? Becoming more mature, healed,
Yeah.
matured. It always goes back to self-understanding to me, self-knowledge. Is being curious about, why we behave the way we do, and how can we prove it somehow to create a sense of peace in our homes.
Yeah.
I don't know, the word maturity came to me, but I'm not sure if that applies though.
Well, I think maturity, and when you've taken the time to heal
Yeah.
and to work on yourself and to take the responsibility and know what your negative beliefs are from childhood and know what your triggers are, then you can be more successful in a relationship and more trusting. And so maturity, I would say that's what it is, right? Like really being able to see that and do that work
Yeah.
is really important. And we see the most success with relationships when individuals do that work or come to the table having done it already.
Right. So, new parents. I'm not a parent, so I cannot relate to the topic from experience, but of course it makes a lot of sense to me reading about it and being around people who are parents. So, what is the why do they face so many challenges as new parents? What is the main cause or the reason behind that?
Yeah, I think it's a huge life change, and
Yeah.
no one knows what to expect until you have a child, right? Like you could read books but when you actually have this baby, it's a game changer. And I just think it's not talked about enough too, especially relationships. Like there's a little discussion about it, but not enough. Like I think postpartum depression, anxiety for women, now we're really recognizing it and treating it and seeing how important that is. Postpartum anxiety and depression for men. Also,
Ah,
it's not
wow.
talked about that much, but men suffer from postpartum as well. So that's, we're shining more light on that. So the next, I'm hoping, is the couple, right? How can we really help this relationship survive this time? Because we know that almost 70% of couples report being unhappy after having kids. That's a huge number, huge. So it's a life change. It's difficult. One of the things we talk about too is stress factors, and you're not sleeping. You can't take care of, you can't even shower sometimes, right? Like these basic needs that you used to be able to do all the time, can't do anymore. So it's a huge problem too. Balancing the housework, balancing roles and what that looks like, finances. So it's
Right.
a lot of answers to your question, but that's a lot of it, and there's many reasons.
Yeah. So there are many chains. That's one of the things that I observed too, that we are not so good with chains, right? Humans, we don't do well. And another thing that I observed, that some people are good at it. Some people are
Yeah.
very open, they are very positive, they are curious. They see challenges almost as an opportunity to grow, to play with life.
It's interesting you say that though, because I think about change. I've been thinking about this so much lately, right? And
Yeah.
change change is the only constant. We know things are going to change, and things change over time for better or for worse, right? Like if you're in a really stuck, sad place, it could change over time. And that's really positive. If you're in a really happy place, you're on vacation, it's going to change over time and it's going to end.
Yeah.
So change is just constant and it's always happening. So adapting to it is really important. And something I've been thinking about too is how change is different. Like the things that to be true, like in the past, may not be true today. And the things that are true today might not have been true in the past. And how just that changes. Like I always think about when I got my driver's license, right? When I was 17, it was like the best thing. Like I could go to breakfast on a Saturday. This is so great. And,
Yes.
I'm on my own. I don't need my parents. And now it's like driving. Oh, what a chore. Like I don't want to have to drive. So it just, things like that just change all the time. So just to your point, I think change is very interesting, and being able to roll with it is very important because it's the only thing we know to be true, or one of the things we know to be true, I should say.
Right. And that's what makes me curious about, the way the mind operates as humans. Why don't we kind of always strive to, for truth and be open to it? Because it is something that it is a fact. So why not just embrace it instead of fighting it or trying to escape it or numbing it? So we use, I think we waste energy by trying to push away things that, they will always be here, like change, for example. That's a big one. So the question that comes to mind before we dive into the survival sessions program, how do you see this concept of mental health? What is to be mentally healthy these days?
That's a great question because I think to the part of change, right?
Yeah.
Mental health changes all the time too. So I think to be healthy would be to know what your emotions are, to be able to regulate those emotions, to be able to take care of yourself, know good coping skills to help you, because mental health affects everyone, right? We all know what it feels like to feel anxious, and we all know what it feels like to feel scared or sad, and love and happiness and all of these things. So it's really learning about that and being able to regulate that and notice that to help you stay mentally healthy.
Right.
And also other things too that contribute to that, like making sure you're exercising or eating healthy or sleeping enough, and all of those things also directly affect your mental health.
Right. So going back to what you do, I want to mention your website. I went there and I saw the couples quiz that you offer too. That's wonderful. It's a screening tool, right? So I love that. And then, so the main question is about the survival sessions and how it works. That's one question. And then what it covers. It's a 7-part series designed to help couples make progress in real time. But you're the best person to explain what that is. Thank you, Brianna.
Sure. So we created a 7-week program basically or 7 sessions. It doesn't have to be weeks, like
Yeah.
where we are just helping couples survive. Now, my goal is to have expecting parents take it, because that way they can prepare. I always think about when I had my first daughter, I really liked sleep training, not cry it out, like just the
Yeah.
sleep training of like really the behavioral part of that. And I read this book. Uh, 5 times before I had her. So then when I had her and I wasn't sleeping and thinking, like I knew what to do because I had read it all those times. So I want to apply that same concept to couples who are expecting, because if we can learn this before, then when you're in survival mode, you just know what to do instinctually. Also, if you could also take the course after you have kids too. Like it's part of that. Also going from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, that affects things too. So yeah, so it's quick. It's 7 sessions, because we know that once you have a baby, like you don't have time. And most parents are like, well, I don't have time to work on my relationship. So no excuses. Here's 7 things that you
Yes.
could do. So first we talk about commitment and committing to your relationship. And what does that mean? Committing to treating each other with kindness, to giving each other grace. We talk a lot about other things that you've committed to in your life. So, did you commit to running a marathon, right? Like that's a huge commitment. What did you do to commit to that? How did you make sure that you were running a certain amount every day, or,
Right.
so you could make that commitment. So it's committing to our relationship over and over and over again. And then we talk about like stress factors, which is what we were talking about before, that make you more susceptible to feeling intense negative emotions. So when you are not sleeping, when you're not eating, when you're not,
Yeah.
when you're not taking medication if you need it, or you're drinking even, let's say, and then you're hungover the next day. All of those things affect your emotions. And it's really important that we know what those are. And personally, everyone also has stress factors. So like, for example, sweating, a stress factor for me. If I am sweating, like, don't talk to me. Like I can't function.
Yeah.
Like I just can't.
Yeah, it's not comfortable, right?
No. So knowing that it's going to be way harder to regulate our emotions if you're sweating because you're thinking about sweating. Rushing is another one, like being in a rush. And another, I'm just naming mine, but like being in a rush, like, I can't think. So when you know what those stress factors are, it could be really anything. It gets in the way of regulating emotions, which gets in the way of you communicating effectively with your partner. So we talk about that. We talk about judgments and interpretations. So
Yeah.
judgments are shorthanded ways of describing things, and negative judgments often lead to anger. And we know that anger in relationships really isn't that useful. So we talk a lot about judgments and how to manage them. So like letting them go, or checking the facts, showing gratitude instead, changing that. And with those judgments, when they're regulated,
Yeah.
we also go towards like the primary emotion. So another part of the survival sessions is talking about primary and secondary emotions and being able to communicate them. So I always give like examples because it sounds so like abstract, but a primary emotion is what you feel biologically right away. And a secondary emotion is a reaction to the primary emotion. So as an example, I think this happened like in June-ish. My husband, and my 2 daughters were going on a bike ride. And my younger daughter is 4 and she's learning how to ride a bike and it's new. And my dog, I love her. She's like my girl, but she doesn't like
Mm.
to walk. So we're like, let's take her on a walk. Let's go with her. We walk 20 feet and she won't walk. So I'm holding her in my arms. My husband is going, so we're at a hill. My husband's going down the hill with my older 6-year-old. The 4-year-old starts going down the hill on her bike. I'm yelling to him, watch her, watch her. He doesn't hear me because they're already down the hill.
Right.
Some motherly superhuman thing came over me. I ran towards her, grabbed her bike. She didn't fall. But my primary emotion was fear, right? I was really scared in that moment. My secondary emotion after that, I said to my husband, why did you stop her? You didn't hear me. What happened? And I was angry. And my secondary emotion was anger. So if he only hears the anger, how is he going to respond to me? Like he's going to be angry and not say, oh my gosh, you were so scared. That must have been so hard. So we don't communicate the primary emotion often in relationships. We communicate the secondary emotion a lot of times. So we go towards that. What's the primary? Fear, sadness, shame, jealousy, envy. What are those primary emotions and how could we express them? It's a skill called accurate expression by Frizzetti. So we teach that. We teach apologizing and repairing when there is a rupture, and how important that is to the success of a relationship or a marriage. We talk about validation and communication, which has a lot to do with primary and secondary emotions. And we talk about building like positivity and pleasant experiences, and really being able to connect even after having children. So that was like a lot what I said, but basically that's
Wow.
the gist of it. And we go into all of that, and we do a lot of exercises and practicing to really help these couples.
Yes. Wow. I mean, what's not to love about it? You
Yeah.
cover a lot.
Thank
There's a
you.
lot of room for self growth, immediate, instant self awareness and self knowledge, understanding, curiosity, kindness, gratitude. You just mentioned so many amazing qualities, skills to have or to be aware of. The judgment one, that's so true though. When you spoke about that, we often judge. We don't look to understand or look from the lens of curiosity
Yeah.
with questions, right? Asking, why is she behaving this way? And we just kind of, judge, create this idea, right? This concept about the person.
Yeah.
It could be true, but I don't think it's helpful.
No, it's not. It's not helpful. No, not really. Because most of the time, especially in relationships, it connects to anger, right? Like the judgment. Why didn't my partner do this?
Yes.
Why didn't he do that? What, that's judgment. And they don't have to be out loud either. Like we don't always say these judgments out loud. It could be in your mind. It could be you're like rolling your eyes, right? It could just be that. It doesn't have to be out loud. So those judgments are problematic and we want to change them. They're just not helpful. They're just not helpful.
Yes. Do you think in a way the collective reflects our individual kind of lives, or is that the individual one, the individual lives that we are trying to cultivate here reflect in the collective? I'm wondering what's reflecting what, because I do see a lot of those dynamics happening, in homes and outside and collectively as a world.
I would say both. I would say both. DBT would say, and this is, you know, DBT kind of laid the groundwork for my therapy career. And I'm so grateful for that
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's just the most amazing treatment and therapy ever. And it's so holistic and relatable. It's just awesome. So DBT would say, and this is my belief also, that it's the bio, like biologically, individuals are who they are, genetics, whatever.
Yeah.
And then there is the environment also. So the social piece too. And those things together do this dance. So it's definitely both. And it's transactional.
Right. Something that you said, you talked about new parents are suffering in silence, struggling alone without a path forward. This caught my attention. I think you wrote this in an email to me. And the question that came to mind is, why this happens again. It sounds to me very unnecessary, right? To
Yeah.
suffer in silence. It doesn't. So why does it happen so often? It was my case too. I never talked to anyone what I went through, and I was just suffering in silence for years and years and years. So what is that all about? Is that we are trying to hide parts of us? We are not actually honoring some of these parts. Is that what it is? I know that's parts work. That's a little bit different.
Sure.
But yeah, talk to me for a moment about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I feel like a lot of people feel judged. If you say that you're struggling, what does that mean? And
Yeah.
if you're not fitting into that status quo or that mold, what does that mean? And I think after you have children and let's say you're around other parents and like maybe they have it together, maybe they look that way, maybe they really don't, but when you're with them, they do, or on social media or whatever.
Right.
You look at that and you say, well, why not me? What am I doing wrong? what's wrong with me? And then you really internalize it. And I think that happens a lot. And I don't think it's discussed enough. I really don't. And I think people are ashamed of that. And I'm not, right? Like, I will tell you, like, having children is tough. It changed my life. It's the most amazing thing that ever happened to me. They're my world. It's really challenging. And it's challenging in so many ways. And I just don't think it's talked about enough. So when I meet expecting parents or new parents, I tell the truth. I tell the
Good.
truth. Like,
Good.
because
Yeah.
it's important. I think we need to spread the word. And it's the same thing with like postpartum with women. You have this baby and you just love them, this deep affection automatically. And it's like, really? I don't know. Right? That's what we see in the movies. And it's just not accurate. And, I think that it's taboo. There's a stigma. And I think we really need to just shine light on it and say, this is the truth. And that's okay. And it's
Yes.
okay. You don't have to suffer in silence. We're all in it together. We all know. We all know.
Oh, I love that. Yes, we all know. What's not to love about that, right? Living a life that's free. It feels like free.
Yeah.
Freedom. That's why I titled this platform The Freedom to Feel for that
Love it.
reason. Yeah, because I learned from talking to so many amazing people like yourself. That's one thing that kept coming back as a message. And then it felt like truth to me, not to try to suppress anything, just, find a way of communicating what your feelings are, your emotions are. Never hold anything secret. Never keep a secret. So that it's really my understanding of at that level of freedom. But I have to ask you the question: what is your idea of freedom in general, not just from feelings and emotions, but in general, Brianna?
That's a really good question. Freedom, I think it's to be able to be who you are and be accepted for that person
Yeah.
and that being okay and letting your light shine through and knowing what your talents and your skills are and being free to be able to perform them, engage with that, whatever that looks like. And
Yes.
I just don't like when people like stomp on your light. I think that freedom of like being able to shine, be that like abundance, right? Like we can all help each other. We can help each other grow and support each other and lift each other up. I see that like with my group practice. Like I always tell other therapists that like I want to help you grow. Like, let's refer to each other. Let's help each other. We're in this together. Like, this isn't a
Yes.
competition. This is to help. It's to, there's enough for everybody. And I really believe that. So I think that is freedom.
Yes. So I heard about two kinds of primary emotions only, that everything stems from fear or love, all kinds of emotions. So the primary ones, is that something that resonates with you somehow?
Yeah. I mean, I think, I don't know. I would say there's more than that. Like, I'm sure that most stem from fear. I think a lot stems from fear. I think we don't even pay attention to that and the love too. But we would say that there's a broader spectrum, like, shame, which could be connected to
Yeah.
fear, I guess. Um, Jealousy, I guess in some ways, if you think about all of the emotions, that does hold true.
Right. I do a lot of reflection and contemplation on these things. And yeah,
Yeah,
and I put myself as, I volunteer myself to observe myself every day. And
that's
then I noticed
amazing.
that, yeah, a lot of it's coming from fear, the thoughts even, and I'm always paying attention. And then from love, I see I don't know if you call that an emotion, but curiosity is one that keeps coming back over and over again, and then leads to understanding. And then I see almost this progression, in emotions, in feelings, when something it's coming from freedom,
Yeah.
basically. It's almost like the absence of fear. That's what love feels like.
And I love what you're saying about curiosity. And I think that really connects
Yeah.
because we always need to be curious, right? Like, so even with couples, relationships, whatever, right? We have an emotion and then we have these interpretations of the emotion or the event or the experience. And that changes everything. And if we could be open and curious, it's usually not what we think. It's usually way different, right? And it's usually not as bad. So it's
Yeah.
really important to have that curiosity and the curiosity about the world. And I love that. I love that.
Yes, me too. And that's one of the things that I see, like with the work you do. Would you say that that's the first step to become curious about how to solve our problems? Like recognizing, of course, that we are having issues, that's being a challenge to living in certain under certain conditions, and then being curious about the solution for the problem.
Yes.
Yeah, I see that. Talk to me about the couples quiz. Is that something that you offer on your website? So the screening is a screening tool. Would that be that first step per se if somebody is interested?
Yeah, sure. We put it on there as like a quick way to see, like, would you benefit from couples therapy? And um, people love the quiz. We get a lot of people filling it
Yeah.
out, and I think it's just a great way. I love quizzes. That's why I put it on there too. Like, whenever I'm on a website and there's a quiz, I'm like, yeah. Um, so yeah, it's a great way to see, like, could I benefit? And I think everyone could benefit from couples therapy. I love couples therapy. I think it's transformational.
Yeah.
It's especially if you're looking or you're interested in a long-term relationship. Look at, if you're married 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, how much changes within that time frame?
Right. So it doesn't surprise me that having a child, that is that hard. It has to be this challenging because of the amount of stress, of change, almost like everything happening at the same time. And from my experience, which was a very simple one, having a dog, I could really see that. So that resonated immediately when I saw
Yeah.
it. I became curious, and then I just said, okay, that makes sense. It doesn't surprise me. Oh my God. Is there anything you want to add, Brianna, about that?
Yeah. Yeah. And, the Gottman Institute, that's where that statistic comes from because they've done a tremendous amount of research on it. And, it's startling. I feel like it's a startling statistic. It's not surprising. It's for me,
Yeah.
it's startling though. How many um couples are unhappy after having kids, and it's hard. And I think we need to do something about it, because we know that when couples struggle, it affects the child's ability to self-soothe and to regulate emotions when they're fighting in front of children. And it's important. So yeah, I mean, puppy is absolutely a great example, like, because you're not sleeping and you're having to tend to the puppy all the time.
Yeah.
And when you have a baby and the baby's crying, and a lot of men suffer from postpartum anxiety, and then they're triggered when the baby's crying and they don't know how to soothe the baby or the woman. It's very complicated, and we have to just spread the word, right? You're not alone. You're not alone. We're, you're not alone. And there are solutions and there are ways to help. And it does get better too. And it does get easier over time. Like, I feel like that's important too. Like, there is hope.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I love about your work, this being out there. So we're almost at the end. I do have a few more questions for you. One
Sure.
that came to mind is about, because you mentioned before being very optimistic, having this mind that's different. So is this something that you're born with it, Brianna, or you're taught by your parents, but somehow the environment kind of influenced you?
You know what? I think it's both. Like, I think
Yeah.
that it's just who I am. My mother's like that. She's very optimistic and she's always seeing the world. I mean, so it's the environment too, because she always just is so kind and compassionate and caring and such a light in this world that I saw that in her and I learned that from her. I think too, resilience builds that. When you go through something really hard and in the pain, and when you're in it, it's
Right.
sucks and it's awful. When you're able to come out of it and see the lessons in it, I think that builds optimism too, which is very tough to do. But you know, so I think it's both. I think maybe I'm just inherently an optimistic person, and I believe in good and kindness. And I think too, like, the influences in my life have really shaped that for me, and definitely my mom. Like, there's no question.
Ah, yes. And before we say goodbye for today, Brianna, I want to mention the services. So the survival sessions, that's one of the services that you offer. You offer a lot more. So you work with other therapists and You do co-parenting, individual therapy, couples, the survival sessions, couples therapy, groups and classes, discernment counseling, premarital counseling, blended family therapy, LGBTQIA plus couples counseling, counseling for parents of young children. And you also offer a free consultation, and you have the download therapy guide download, which
Mhm.
is free on your website too. And the website couplestherapyservices.com.
Yeah, that's what we do. So it's me. There's 9 of us now, and our amazing
Yeah.
practice manager Katie, who takes all the calls. She's fantastic, and we specialize with couples. It's what we do. We see couples, and we use evidence-based treatments to help them improve, and
Yeah.
we see improvement, which is an amazing thing to see. So yeah, that's what we do, and my team is awesome, and I love it, and I love them.
Yeah, you're awesome. They look awesome. Yeah, I was looking at the pictures of everybody. And then the first thing that comes to me, the energetic resonance, I can call it, or frequency, whatever, is kindness. Yeah. And when I look at their eyes, like everybody, like, oh my God, that's really beautiful. It is believed that some of us come back here in the body from a spiritual perspective, and then some of us are doing the work of helping others to heal, to see the light, to become more loving towards ourselves and others in our environment. So that's how I see healers. You as a healer, somebody who just came back for that to do that work. It's
Yeah.
not really being here to go through lessons anymore, because some of you are so advanced in it. I feel that presence is so elevated and so light, that it has to be true. I don't know, but I would love for that to be true. So thank you again for your presence in our reality.
And thank you for yours, because I think what you're doing is so important and awesome. And I love it. And you're such a kind, calming presence.
Oh my God, I
You really
love this.
are.
I have to
Yeah.
tell you. Yeah, that's the thing. Doing the things we love, yeah, that can change everything too. Human connection. I love connecting with people, talking about meaningful things. So, anyway, before we say goodbye for today, again, couplestherapyservices.com, everything will be on the podcast notes. But the last question will be this one, Brianna, for you. What 3 experiences you wish everyone to have before they die, before they lose the body?
Oh, what 3 experiences?
Yeah.
I mean, love for sure. Really having that deep love, that connection, whether it's with a partner or a child or a parent or an animal, right? Like really just experiencing
Yeah.
that love. I think that that's really important. I also think being able to achieve your dreams and accomplish those dreams, like even for me right now, like I feel so blessed that my personal dreams and my career dreams are coming true. Like to be able to feel that is huge.
Mhm.
Is huge. And I think another experience is for everyone to have like support and unconditional love, which ties to the first one. But how do we have that? How do we develop that for each other? Where can you find that support? And not everyone has it. And I think everyone deserves that. Really, just to have that. It's important, right? Like I have my friends and my family and my husband and my kids, and
Yeah.
I want everyone to have that, whatever that looks like for them.
Yes. Wow. That sounds like a whole topic for an episode. Support,
Yeah.
yeah, having this unconditioned presence, right? Somebody who is there to listen, not to judge. Yeah, that's a big one. Huge, huge one. That's definitely under the umbrella of love. Yeah, for sure. And I love getting your dreams to be realized. That to me has to do with being true to you.
Yeah.
That's definitely your case. I see that. So, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Thank you so much, Brianna, again, for your wisdom, for the work that you've been doing, for being open hearted, for being kind.
Thank you. I feel like showered with goodness. So I really appreciate that. You're so kind.
Yeah, I feel the same way in your presence. Thank you. So, yeah, we'll talk soon. We'll be in touch again. Bye
Yep.
for now, Brianna.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.